The end of the world as we know it. A concept alone which strikes fear into any which reside on this futile cosmic rock. A cataclysm which would destroy all that we hold near and dear is something most choose not to dwell upon. But being unprepared for such an event can lead to even worse outcomes. Such is true especially for the world of darkness, and the various apocalypses which are fated to wreak havoc upon every damned and cursed life form which exists within it. One such collection of catastrophic events is told through the myths and legends of vampires, an event of which their kind refer to simply as Gehenna. Vampiric doomsday enthusiasts will note that Gehenna is an intensely complex subject, and various cults and devoted factions all subscribe to their own version of events. Some believe that the ancient vampires who forged the 13 clans will reawaken to devour every soul within the world into their starving jaws. Others may believe that God, in his omnipotence, will smite all by conjuring a horrific cloud of sheer destruction. Tonight, we will be going through perhaps the most popular depictions of Gehenna, which are foretold to enact total annihilation upon the world of darkness. But if you are looking to protect yourself from an equally terrifying apocalypse regarding your personal data being stolen, look no further than this installment sponsor, Atlas VPN. A VPN within our own world of darkness is a must, and Atlas VPN offers a wide range of global servers to allow you to access the internet in a safe and secure manner. Atlas VPN offers a whole host of useful services which enhance your web browsing, allowing you to unlock content which is blocked in your country, such as shows and movies on your favorite streaming services. You can also browse free of mind by connecting to one of Atlas VPN's many global servers and gain organic search results without your activity being tracked. This service is also more than just a VPN, as it will block all nefarious malware, ads, and trackers, whilst also notifying you when someone is attempting to steal your personal data. You can also snatch up some amazing deals by using Atlas VPN while shopping online or purchasing subscriptions, which will come in handy the next time I need to impulse buy sourcebooks. They also offer one of their own amazing deals, providing the best VPN bargain on the market for just $1.83 per month, plus 3 months extra free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. And for a service which can be used on all of your devices, this is truly an amazing deal. So try Atlas VPN today by clicking the link in the description below and grab their limited time deal for just $1.83 per month, plus 3 months extra free with their 30-day money-back guarantee. Whilst Gehenna may be a mysterious topic of debate, many of the tales which cover its events intersect at various points. A popular depiction of Gehenna primarily concerns the re-emergence of the first vampire, Cain, and the Antediluvians of the third generation, which will signify the beginning of the end. Gehenna also indicates a specific place, where those survivors at the end of the world will assemble, often believed to be a city or a settlement, which sometimes exists in the ancient biblical lands where then chaos, evil, and ruin will reign. There are various signs and prophecies which prelude this catastrophic event, which project great paranoia upon those that truly believe in this so-called myth. The Book of Nod, the ancient vampiric text which details the inception of vampires, describes a variety of these signs, which are said to precede Gehenna. Many of these signs are most prevalent within the events of the so-called Final Nights, one of a series of hypothetical events which tell the tale of Gehenna's arrival. Some believe these signs are yet to pass, whilst others are devout in thinking that they have already come to fruition. Whatever the truth may be, here are the key signs of Gehenna's beginning from the Final Nights. The time of the Thin Bloods. Thin Bloods in this context concerns both vampires of high generation and those sired into no clan. These clanless vampires within this time are far more prevalent, and take upon roles in vampire society which are often reserved for elders and those of high clan status. This can be primarily seen through the Camarilla princes of Cairo and Sydney, with both offices being occupied by caitiff princes. The true paranoia stems not from the flourishing communities of weak-blooded vampires, but from the psychic signal they relay back to the Antediluvians. Whilst Thin Bloods may be clanless in theory, their death is still able to pass a message back to these ancient Cainites. And on top of Thin Bloods being deemed far weaker and more prone to meeting their final death, it is said that their presence will force the Antediluvians to awaken, whilst their kind are massacred in their droves. The Wild Ones will hunt, a sign which may not be completely obvious, but one which is surely prevalent to every vampire in modern nights. The Wild Ones often refer to hunters, which are said to hold greater dominance in the lead up to Gehenna, being able to slay vampires even in their strongest cities. Coupled with the fall of various vampiric strongholds, such as London and Vienna, this sign plays out in horrific display in present nights. These Wild Ones are also hypothesized to be the mysterious entity known as the Fae, yet many do not subscribe to this rendition of the sign. The awakening of some of the eldest. It is believed by some vampires that the mysterious Antediluvians are believed to be awake and active, manipulating the world with their overwhelming powers. Whilst to many this may be but nonsense, it is said that the Ravnos Antediluvian had awoken from their torpor to be slain in near-apocalyptic fashion. To many, this means that the Antediluvians are already in motion. The awakening of the Crone. Tales tell of an ancient being known as Baba Yaga, or the Crone, a supernatural entity from the Book of Nod, suspected of also being the figure of Lilith, Cain's first mate. It is said that when Gehenna falls upon the world, Cain and Lilith will be reunited, however in less than friendly circumstances. A great battle is foretold when they meet, which will wreak havoc and devastating consequences for not only the loser, but the Earth as a whole. The Black Hand will rise. This ambiguous sign, which stems from the Book of Nod, is believed to refer to the vampiric sect known as the Sabbat. However, this sign is shrouded in mystery, as some scholars believe that the Sabbat, who were formed many millennia after the inception of vampires, took their name inspired by these myths. This leads many to think who the true Black Hand are, and more importantly, where they may be operating to bring about the end of the world. Drinking of the heart's blood. Many scholars of the Book of Nod take the rise of diablerie, the act of consuming another vampire's soul, as a key sign of Gehenna's imminent arrival. It is said that on the road to Gehenna, the act of diablerie will be as common as feeding from mortals, as those that partake in this diabolical act will flourish, where others will fall beneath their growing power. A dragon rises. Some believe this sign relates to the resurgence of demons and entities from hell, which are said to roam the earth once more. But such theories are in most cases beyond vampiric scholarship. However, many interpret this as the rise of Dracula, dubbed the dragon in these ancient tales. This has also led many to believe that this could also mean the awakening of the Tzimisce Antediluvian, the eldest, who is perhaps one of the most feared and the most horrifying entities to exist within this world. The darkness moves. The abyss, a strange realm of which many fear within vampiric circles, is said to stir upon the brink of apocalypse. Some devout believers in Gehenna speak of a dark, dread entity which lurks within this void, spelling the demise of the La Sombra clan, and perhaps all Cainites, if this so-called master of the abyss emerges. The prelude to Gehenna in itself is a terrifying concept. As the world slowly decays and turns to gory violence, these signs become blatantly obvious to even those that are skeptical of the world's demise. Yet such signs are but child's play to the actual event of Gehenna, which will cause the world of darkness to collapse in a slow, agonizing fashion. Whilst there are a multitude of hypothetical Gehenna scenarios, the first we must explore comes from the Book of Nod itself, which outlines these end times in bleak terms. It is said, when Gehenna falls upon the world, all will be still and dark. Day will turn to night, and an unkindness of ravens will shrill the call of apocalypse. The moon which lays within the pitch-black skies will become red as blood, and the sun that rises will be stained black. The whole world will turn cold as ice, yet fetid substances will bubble up from the earth's crust, casting an aura of death and decay. Great storms will ravage the lands, creating huge fires and cataclysm across the former realm of the living. Animals, in all their forms, will rapidly decay, their bodies becoming twisted and mutilated. Upon the first day, the eldest of the vampires will rise once more, returning to the world to brutalize and consume every soul which still exists within it. That first day, they will break their millennia-long fast by draining the vitae of innumerable vampires, yet they will soon consume every being. On the second day, Cain will return, and will reside on his basalt throne within the first city of Enoch. There he will summon all of his remaining children, every vampire still moving, and will judge them for their crimes. He will call aloud the names of those to be destroyed by his decree, and those that have consumed the heart's blood, the crime of diablerie, will be forced to drink from Cain's vitae. His blood, which is omnipotent and all-consuming, will devour the lesser vampire's body in whole, destroying them in mere moments. Upon this second day, Lilith will be summoned to the Valley of Enoch, for the battle between the lovers to commence. Under the onyx skies of the apocalypse, the two will trade claws and fangs, shredding and mauling their unliving bodies. The demon queen will bite deep, yet the damned king will bite deeper. The result of this battle will be unknown to all vampires, yet upon its end, the earth will crack in two, releasing the hordes of hell, the demons themselves, to pour into the world. On the third day, an eerie silence will once again consume the land, and crows will feed upon the dead. These will be the last days of the werewolves, who will take a brutal stand against the powers of the dying. Yet this will all be in vain. They will fall upon this day, in their entirety, their history lost to the sands of time. The Antediluvians will then form their empire of blood, and will rule with iron talons across the world. They will consume every living and unliving soul, until all beings that remain flock to the last city, the city of Gehenna. It is said that Gehenna will reign for 1,000 years as the last civilization, yet it will be a dismal existence for all those that live within it. There will be no love, no life, no pity. All will be made foul and evil. Everything good will be tainted, as the father of darkness, Cain, will take his power from hell itself. As the snow covers the world in these last dismal days, then and only then will be born a child, a woman, the last daughter of Eve. Upon her, the fate of the world will be burdened. None will know this woman, only by the mark she holds, the mark of the moon. She will face torment, hatred, violence, and treachery, yet she will be the only glimmer of hope before all existence is annihilated. The events from the Book of Nod give a bleak, concise view on these apocalyptic times, yet Gehenna is often interpreted in many different ways. The themes displayed by the Book of Nod are common in many depictions of the end times. However, some stories tell of greater cosmic powers at play, or epic wars between mortals and vampires. On top of the final night, there are 4 other depictions of Gehenna, which of course, dear listener, I will provide summaries of for your existential terror. Wormwood is a punishment upon all of Cain's children from the Almighty themselves. The events of Gehenna which present the devastation wrought by the presence of Wormwood are swift and lethal in comparison. The events leading up to Gehenna mirror those that were seen before the Great Flood, with a message of salvation offered by the divine to the damned children of Cain. This message was embedded into a young girl, a Dhampir, the spawn of a mortal and a thin-blooded caitiff. Her, alongside the gargoyle Ferox, is told to instruct vampires of high faith of this imminent apocalypse, and that God would lead them to sanctuary to escape the cataclysm which would soon befall all vampires. These few became known as the Chosen, and all else were left to suffer 40 nights of Gehenna. Wormwood, much like the flood of biblical times, is an event which will wash over the world in its entirety. However, instead of utilizing the violence of the seas, it is said God will summon a red star. This red star will loom over the earth before the apocalypse begins, and will be visible only to those of supernatural blood. It is said that God wished for ignorance to remain over the mortals, whilst this horrific entity spelled the end before them. This red star is said to be the source of Gehenna, Gehenna, expelling a great gaseous cloud upon the earth to slowly erode the powers of Cainites. The gas will envelop the world as a great fog, which will linger in every crevice, leaving little to no chance for escape. The effects are slow, yet it gradually and agonizingly eviscerates a vampire's body and soul. Wormwood's primary ability is to wash away the power of Vitae, and will slowly dilute the essence of Cain's blood over the span of 40 nights. The first effect is the breaking of the blood bonds, shattering the relationships between regnants and thralls, causing their prior emotions to manifest and cause great instability within vampiric society. The second effect is the loss of the ability to gain nourishment from mortal blood, a cruel punishment which leaves a vampire only able to feed from another vampire's vitae, leading to a gory uptake in diablerie and vampiric conflict. The third effect is the inability to sire, i.e. to produce more vampires through the act of the embrace. As the blood dilutes, any attempts to do so will be met in vain. This also means that vampires will no longer be able to sustain ghouls, their mortal servants, leaving them starving and susceptible to treachery. The fourth effect is the loss of power, also known as the withering. It is said by the end of these 40 nights of Gehenna, an antediluvian of the third generation will be no stronger than a thin blood. Yet every vampire experiences this withering. On the 27th night, all vampires will become thin bloods, of extremely high generation, and on the 37th night, all the vitae within their body will have vanished, leading to the final death. Gehenna will still rage on for another 3 nights, however, just in case. The events of Gehenna, known as Fair is Foul, twist the concept of Cain bringing about the vampiric apocalypse and hand the reins of Cataclysm to the Dark Mother, Lilith. Whilst we have spoken about Lilith in a prior video, her power is somewhat understated in the greater lore of the world of darkness. Lilith and Cain share a taboo, cursed bond, with their shared history foreboding a horrific clash if ever the two should meet again. In this Gehenna scenario, Lilith has risen and assembled a great number of her allies to create destructive, supernatural occurrences to draw the attention of the Dark Father, to ultimately lead him to his final death. The Dark Mother's entourage is rather extensive to say the least. As the embodiment of unholy fertility, her children are plentiful and ravenous. The events which occur are perhaps less grandiose than those of Wormwood, but devastation will still be displayed to a nightmarish degree, as Lilith intends to not only kill Cain, but will eradicate every vampire from existence with his demise. Thus, in drawing his attention, her warpath will be strewn with the many corpses of those that wish to oppose her, or simply stand in the path of her violent, vengeful machinations. Fueled by revenge, Lilith is said to summon her monstrous children from the depths of the vast oceans. True beasts of Lovecraftian horror, these creatures infiltrate civilizations through their sewer systems and wreak havoc upon any they come into contact with. Alongside Lilith stand the apostates, loyal antediluvians to the Dark Mother, who have pledged to aid her in killing the Dark Father. These antediluvians only appear within this iteration of Gehenna, apart from the Crone and Elias, or the Bruja antediluvian. It is said that Lilith even travelled into the Shadowlands to destroy Cain's own brother, Abel, in order to invoke his wrath. If all of these events occur as Lilith intends, the final battle against Cain will be stacked in her favor, and upon slaying the Dark Father, every vampire will be freed of the bonds of Vitae. Many, of course, will die within the process of this. Those vampires that have lived for centuries will wither away until their bodies are merely dust. Some lucky enough to have been newly sired will, in some cases, return to their mortal selves. Yet, whilst this world will now be bereft of vampires, they are now under the rule of Lilith, in this new world fueled by the Tree of Life. Whatever their decisions were, to support Lilith or to go against her, they will now be judged within this newly built garden, above the ashes of what was the world of darkness. The Masquerade is not only a rule to maintain the power structures of vampire society within the world of darkness, but it is also the only string holding them from certain annihilation. The events of Nightshade depict a world in which Gehenna unmasks the secret society of Canaanites, leading to an apocalyptic war between the godlike Antediluvians and everyone foolish enough to come between them, and their pursuit of world domination. As we have discussed before, one of the most prevalent and disturbing signs of Gehenna exists underneath the sewers of New York. A hulking mass of flesh and gore. It is believed that a part of the Tzimisce Antediluvian, the eldest, has become a fetid tumor, clinging and feeding upon the innocent souls of Manhattan. However, this soulless, all-consuming beast can only be caged within its dismal lair for so long. And when its tendrils seek the sustenance of all those that live on the surface, it is not long before humanity is made aware of its monstrosity. All the major sects are called forth to New York to ensure that the Masquerade is kept secure, yet this shapeless monster which dwarfs the city skyline cannot be contained by mere mortal weapons. Thus, when its shape oozes out of every sewer grate, every manhole, it soon sets its variety of grotesque limbs and mouths to devour every soul in sight. For this beast is but one part of Tzimisce, the body which knows nothing but to kill and to feed. With every creature the monster ingests, its body grows, creating a giant mass of captured souls, wailing songs of pain into the night. The Battle of Manhattan has begun, yet more malevolence is at play. Through the powers of vicissitude, any Tzimisce or any kindred that has ingested the blood of a fiend encounters demonic visions and dreams, causing them to enter an uncontrollable frenzy. Upon the streets of New York, vampires are seen in various states of monstrosity, contorted by the will of the Antediluvian which looms over their ruined civilization. As the battle rages on, live footage is captured from every major news corporation. Vampires are seen for what they truly are, battling against or fighting for this abominable entity, which crushes and devours souls by their thousands. It is only upon the entrance of Czek, a Tzimisce Methuselah who withstood the Antediluvians' call, that the tides began to turn. After a great amount of time battling this hulking behemoth, the body of the Antediluvian appears to be defeated, yet on the other side of the world, the eldest awakens within a certain host, being that of the usurper, Tremere. It is said that while Sorlot resided within this body, he was destroyed when the eldest ignited his powers within him. Many believe that Sorlot was lost in the process, yet prophecies continued to arise about him. The world now knows about vampires. Some governments and international unions seek to side with them, such as the EU entering an agreement with the Camarilla. Others are consumed by riots and war, whilst the bells of Gehenna toll. Major earthquakes and volcanic eruptions are felt around the world, as every major city is now locked down, fearing the apocalypse at their doorstep. Some governments are overthrown by so-called crimson regimes, namely Sabbat takeovers of mortal states, which attempt to secure greater power for their fight against the Antediluvians. Jan Pieterszoon, the child of Hardestat the Younger, one of the founders of the Camarilla, calls forth the Convention of Fire to discuss the prevention of Gehenna. A new sect is formed to counteract the forces of the Antediluvians, known as the Neftali, a vampiric faction which no longer abides by the Masquerade and presents themselves to the world as the last bastion of defense against the end times. However, the world is now being eroded away, with rioting and war whittling away the remaining population's sanity. Vampires slowly begin to feel the weakening of the blood, known as the Withering, a result of Gehenna which forces kindred to discard mortal feeding and to prey upon their own instead. Prophets speak of the rising of the third generation, the Antediluvians, but they also speak of hope residing wherever the soul of Sorlot lurks, and a lost city resurfacing once more. As those soothsayers predicted, Gehenna had risen from the sands, with an ancient temple seemingly forged by the Antediluvians themselves presenting itself to the world. Desperate parties searched this ancient city, finding all of the names of the original third generation inscribed upon its walls, yet they also discovered an ancient vial containing a deep and ominous crimson liquid, of which baffled the greatest greatest of scientists. It is believed that this vial contains the last remnants of Cain, upon which any that choose to consume it will be eroded rapidly by his all-potent vitae. However, more ominously, it is said that the soul of Sorlot had manifested itself once more, yet in perhaps the most obscure of places. Within Australia, there is a laboratory called Virilax Genetics Research Facility, a bleak and mysterious place which many have not witnessed the sheer cruelties of science inside. A few accounts of such a place have stated citing rows of amniotic tanks, with various bodies inside in differing states of growth or decay. Each bears a similar resemblance, and it is believed to be a cloning facility, harboring only one successful result. This boy, around the age of 6, is a peculiar sight. For most, he is simply a regular boy, yet he bears the mark all Salubri are burdened with, the mysterious third eye obfuscated upon their forehead. This glimmer of hope dwindles within the dying days of the world, as the veil of darkness, a great eclipse which darkens the dawning hours, consumes everything. The Antediluvians assemble within the city of Gehenna, and call forth their children to join their vast armies of darkness, or to be assimilated by draining their souls. After every civilization has torn itself apart, or rendered itself dead by the powers of the Antediluvians, it is then where the last city of Gehenna prepares itself for its 1,000-year reign, and brings forth all those that wish to act against the third generation for their final judgment. The Neftali, the Camarilla, the Sabbat, and the Inconnu, all who were poised against Gehenna, are sent for execution before the Antediluvians. Amongst them, the young 6-year-old boy, the host body of Sorlot. He carries forth the mysterious Cainite vial, and is questioned by the father of the clan of the ministry, Set. The boy, holding this vial, states forth that none can drink from it, causing fits of mocking laughter amongst the Antediluvians. Set, within his cruel state of mind, commands Sorlot to drink from the vial, in an attempt to seal his doom. However, upon consuming the contents of the vial, Sorlot speaks forth a prophetic final testimony. You have all failed. A great shroud of light consumes his body, with great beams of radiant energy emitting from the boy's eyes. The Antediluvians, horrified by the sight, begin to feel an intense pain ravage their bodies. Black blood trickles from their ears, and they are consumed by fits of indescribable torment. Then comes forth a holy sight, enrapturing the body of Sorlot. A messenger from the divine calls forth to Sorlot, accepting his sacrifice and atonement for all vampire kind before the Almighty. The basalt throne of Cain decays and explodes, and the Antediluvians are reduced to mere cinders before the angelic light. And then, silence. The world remains destroyed, fractured by this unholy war, yet humanity still exists, clinging to the ashes of what was the world of darkness. Our final depiction of Gehenna, the Crucible of God, is a set of events which portrays a violent war between the mortals and vampires. How this war came to be is, in contrast to prior depictions, rather mundane. A vampire is exposed for what they truly are, breaking the masquerade as footage of them leaks onto every media platform across the world. Whilst alarm is spread across every country, the apocalypse does not start here. Some countries are accepting of the truth that the supernatural live among us, whereas others condemn their existence entirely. The start of the war was not quick. It began with discontent, which brewed into suspicion. As the mortal powers dug deeper into the world of darkness, the more disgusting secrets they found. News is published about Camarilla centers which house dissident Kindred, used for diablerie for their elders. So-called cannibal camps, amongst other damning headlines, paint the vampire world in an ugly light. Then, it is not long until the powers of the hunters begin to form, and governments turn to interning exposed Kindred. As time ticked on, vampires did not wish to comply with these mortal demands, fighting back to escape the clutches of imprisonment. imprisonment. However, as these events became more popular, soldiers started to receive looser rules of engagement, to the point where execution squads were assembled and any kindred was shoot on sight. Thus began the age of the New Inquisition, a time of emboldened mortals wishing to purge all of vampire society through fire and blood. It was a war which only spelled doom, and the only question to be answered was when Gehenna would occur. The elders of Canaanite society saw to it to orchestrate strikes against mortals, to demoralize their vast populations. Setites assassinated global leaders. Groups of kindred would pollute water sources and would commit acts of unspeakable atrocity. Many elders accepted the forces of the Black Hand to choke humanity, and in doing so brought about a new wave of violence and bloodshed. Yet this only hastened their demise. In their foolishness, the Setite Hierophant summoned forth great hordes of cultists and religious fanatics of their own clan. There they gathered forth to raise their undead father, Set, so he could once again rule as a god, to quell the forces of mortals and to bring about a new age of vampiric supremacy. Many Setites gave their unlife in sacrifice to raise the Antediluvian, yet it did not occur as they intended. Indeed, they did invoke the spirit of the Antediluvian, yet instead of offering them his support, he instead commanded all of his progeny to sacrifice their unlives, to join him in Duat, the realm of the dead. With the clan of the ministry all but dead, and many Canaanites slaughtered in their multitudes across the world, the Antediluvians were being stirred, with every vampiric final death suffered. The psychic link shared between every vampire to every Antediluvian slowly ensured that the third generation would rise once more, to devour every soul present. Upon the night of their rising, it is said that the red star reflected upon the moon, curdling its white hue to the color of deep crimson. A vast psychic call was sent to every kindred upon the Antediluvians' awakening, but only the Methuselahs were required to satiate their first bloody banquet. Once nourished, the Antediluvians sought out their conquest of humanity. Perhaps if the elders had not fought so defiantly against the mortals, humanity would have won the war against the Antediluvians. But after months, perhaps even years of bloodshed, their munitions were depleted. When the Antediluvians attacked, humanity sent tank brigades and infantry, which were but child's play to these godly beings. Many armies were manipulated into swearing their undying fealty to their vampiric overlords. Others were simply eradicated by great lightning storms and rains of fire, the Antediluvians not sparing a single soul to their diabolical magics. Within 2 months, the Antediluvians had won, and every nation upon Earth was dragged back into the Dark Ages. The Empire of Blood had begun, yet more terrors lay in wait for all those that stood under the Antediluvian shadow. Each Antediluvian had their reign, yet each seemingly fell after the other. Here are examples of their apocalyptic tenures as gods within their own right. The Tzimisce Antediluvian, through the powers of vicissitude, had grown into a behemoth network of flesh, a vile organism which could assimilate any living soul into its amorphous body. Geysers of undead flesh could be seen high above the Manhattan skyline, with the US president forced to strike the city with an atomic bomb. Yet, as dawn broke, the many hundred gaping maws which covered every street withered away into the daylight. Tzimisce had already passed into their incorporeal form to infect every soul within the known world. The Nosferatu Antediluvian, Absimiliard, became known as the father of monsters. Many say in these times he embraced half-human, half-demon creatures which would tower over any mortal and would induce mind-destroying terrors upon them before ending their miserable lives. Some claim that these beasts are the Niktuku and are beyond any category known to kindred or kine. It is said, deep beneath the earth, Absimiliard created spawning pools where various monstrosities would lay in stasis until the day the crust cracked in two and his army of pure nightmares would arise to devour all those that stood before him. The Assamite Antediluvian Hakim appeared to have a more reasonable approach, even though rather severe. He sent forth forth various servants to abide his will, undertaking blood bonds to service his demands. Any that did not comply, however, were swiftly diablerized. Malkav, whilst having no corporeal form, awakened alone and yearning to escape the clutches of his own mind. Many Malkavians were subsumed into his collective hive mind, becoming more than 1,000 bodies in total. He is said to also have tortured the minds of mortals, turning them into true beasts of pure insanity. They took great pleasure in torture, cannibalism, and an endless list of depraved activities. However, Malkav's presence is felt rather momentarily, yet whilst he was awake, he warped the minds of millions, causing every being in existence to never forget his presence. La Sombra's reign is also felt rather momentarily as well, but a whole host of destruction followed his every move. A shadow creature wandered the world, consuming not only a person's blood or their soul, but their entire being, wrapping around their body until there was not an atom left. Luhi, a Malkavian witch who was bound to La Sombra, saw to it to conjure a ritual to fully blot out the sun. Within this ceremony, she would pass upon godhood to this shadow creature from the abyss. Upon finalizing the ceremony, her oath was complete. As day became night, it seemed as if the earth stood still. All that lived now perished, from plants to simple creatures. The world grew cold, and humanity attempted to withstand the darkness. Yet after 3 weeks, a hurricane of blood rained down from the skies. La Sombra was no more, and the darkness withdrew. An antediluvian not discussed in our prior installments is that of the Shaper. An antediluvian without a clan, for she never sired any childer. She possessed the unique ability to move, animate, reshape, and transform material objects. She wished to eat her way to the top, and aided any that brought her kindred that she wished to feed upon. Her final battle was fought with Absimiliard, upon which she utilized entire buildings to crush him, wielding them like missiles within her power. After her victory, her celebrations were sadly cut short before she was swallowed by a gaping mouth made from the very earth she stood upon. This was, of course, Enoya's doing. The reign of the Gangrel Antediluvian, Enoya is perhaps one of the most destructive. As she commands the very earth, through melding it to her will, she creates vast and destructive earthquakes at her disposal. Her wish is to consume all the vitae she possibly can, and thus swallows up entire cities to feast upon the kindred that most likely dwell there. Enoya's destruction lasts as long as her battle with her siblings does, and when she is satiated that she has consumed her rivals, the earth becomes still once more. Tremere, one of the last antediluvians to have his reign, comes with an odd caveat. Whilst Tremere is the arch-usurper, having diablerized Sorlot to gain his antediluvian powers, he has his own doubts about Gehenna and the end of the world. As he inhabits the body of Goratrix, he is able to make his move and thus plans his gambit to dominate every mortal and vampire via a ritual to step into the sunlight. By utilizing the Human Genome Project conducted by the Mormon Church, he performed the ritual, sacrificing his and a few other Cainites' blood to finalize his plan. However, as he was about to deliver his command, his body became mutilated and warped by 100 eyes and tendrils, churning his body into a mass of organs, tentacles, mouths, and appendages. Tremere was warped into a Vodst, and it appears Tzimisce had won. In these end days, everything is Tzimisce. Every being that has consumed the blood of Tzimisce, has learned vicissitude, has had family members consume the blood of a Tzimisce, is now under the control of the Eldest himself. He is an immortal god, a being of millions of bodies combined. No physical force can ever destroy the Eldest, and the only salvation left is once again in the hands of Sorlot. In the body of Tremere, Sorlot can call upon the Eldest, despite having kept his corruption at bay, and to seek the salvation of God to finally end Gehenna. Sorlot, with a retinue of kindred, released the beast through Sorlot's host body, Tremere. There, the Tzimisce Antediluvian swiftly absorbs the souls of the coterie, casting them into a realm of complete darkness, between the essences of Sorlot and the Eldest. There, as Sorlot suggested, they must pray for their lives. If successful, they are cast back out into the world of the living, in an explosion of wrath, yet mercy. Sorlot's body is gone. Yet it would seem that the reign of the immortal Tzimisce Antediluvian is over. In the wake of Gehenna, fewer than 100 mortals remain, the rest slain by the atrocities of all the other Antediluvians. The world starts anew, yet will it thrive into the light, or will it plunge straight back into the darkness to start all over again? Thank you for watching. Many apologies for the wait on this video. After coming back from my vacation, it's been a little tricky getting into the swing of things again. But thank you guys so much for sticking with me and supporting the channel. It generally has been amazing to just see all your lovely comments of support and kindness, and I hope I can get more videos to you as soon as possible and not keep having these big long waits. If you enjoyed this video, it would mean the world if you would let me know what you thought about it in the comments, or left a like for the algorithm. Also, if you really enjoyed it, feel free to subscribe as it helps the channel tremendously. Again, a huge thank you for Atlas VPN for sponsoring this video. And remember, stay safe and do not wander naively into the night.